right, cool. I'm ready now. Woo! Bienvenidos a Miami. All right, so everyone. So first, before I get started, I want to take a unofficial poll. Who here in the room, can I get a show of hands, has used a password before? All right, everybody. All right, hands down, hands down. Now, at everyone who raised their hand, who actually likes using passwords? You're lying. But it was a lot less people than I expected to see, so that's good. So today I'm going to talk about how we can move to a future where we're getting rid of passwords, but increasing security at the same time. So first, let me introduce myself. My name is Will. I'm a senior developer advocate at Auth0 by Okta, and I'm also a lover of family and a hater of passwords. And actually, a fun fact, React Miami last year was my first conference talk that I've ever gave, and I had so much fun last year. I'm so grateful to be back this year. I actually brought my daughters with me this year. So I wanted them to experience Miami, experience all the things that I loved last year, the food, the culture, the weather, the beach. I just wanted my daughters to experience that with me. It's been a great time. But back at home, they have 4 brothers. So that's a total of 6 children. So for anyone who's doing the math, 6 children equals lots of food. So my wife and I, we cook most of the meals. We kind of switch off. But every now and then, sometimes we just don't feel like cooking. And when that time of the month comes, my wife and I look at each other and we know what time it is. It's time to order some pizza. But here's the thing. I hate ordering pizza. Clicker's not working. All right. I hate ordering pizza. And it's not because I don't like pizza. No, pizza is delicious. The problem is I can never remember the password to the pizza place's website to log in. So about every month or two, me and my wife will get on the website. We'll enter every password combination we can think of. Uppercase, lowercase, numbers, symbols, secret passwords from the Middle Ages. Like we try all types of things to try and log into the website. And then eventually after about 15 minutes, we're magically logged in. And I had no idea what password we actually entered to get in. But I'm pretty sure whatever password worked, I entered at least 3 or 4 times. Now, I know what you're thinking. Just use a password manager. No, you're thinking click forgot password. And so click forgot password and then pick a password that you can remember. But I did that and I forgot that password. And not only are passwords annoying to deal with, they're hard to remember. They're always getting attacked and breached. On top of that, people will always ask you to create more passwords. So for example, I just signed my daughter up for soccer. So to sign her up for soccer, I had to create an account to sign up and pay for her to play soccer. Then I volunteered to be the coach. And then I had to sign up through the volunteer portal to be a volunteer. And then since I'm the coach, I had to sign up for the team communication platform so I can communicate with the parents. So that's 3 different accounts, 3 different passwords, just so we can play soccer. We're undefeated, by the way. But you're probably thinking, why don't you just use a password manager? And I agree, password managers makes passwords easier to use, more convenient. However, it's still another thing to download, another account to create, another thing to manage. And we've tried many different things to try to make passwords more secure. Like we use second factor authentication. So when you log into a website, you get a passcode sent to your phone, and then you verify that code onto the website, and then you're logged in. But what happens one day, you're in the gym, you drop a dumbbell on your phone, it smashes the screen, you go home, you order a new phone, and then to order the new phone, it sends you a password to the smashed phone in order to verify your identity. So everything that we have done so far to make passwords more secure has been more work, more steps for the user, more things to download, more accounts to make, just more. And that's not a good user experience. So it is time to move on. It's time to stop trying to make passwords happen. And the obligatory. And you may be thinking that I'm just the password hater guy. I've had so many bad experiences with passwords that it's just me. It can't be that bad. But I assure you it's not. I'm not the only person who has a strong opinion about passwords. So here are a couple of things that I've gathered from Twitter with other people talking about passwords. So for example, Michael Chan, some of you may know him from the React podcast days, said, I'd rather quit your service than to update my password. And I 100% agree with that. I didn't want to make the password in the first place. So now if you send me an email every 3 months saying to change the password besides some reason besides a data breach, I'm probably just not going to log in again. Another opinion from Jason Linkstorf. I picked my password when I was 14, and I'll be darned if you corporate drones think you'll force me to give up Hoobastank, capital H. That's important. You got to have the capital H. Hoobastank 69 exclamation point for the sake of your so-called security. And this next one here is my personal favorite. I already know how this person said it. I ain't got no more passwords in me, bruh. The average user has over 108 passwords. It is unfair to expect someone to keep track of that many passwords and have them all be unique. So instead of having users jump through more hoops and try to keep their passwords safe, how about we come up with a different solution that is keep the user's data secure and is more convenient on them? And that's what happened when WebAuthn was created. So WebAuthn, or the long way of saying it is web authentication, is a browser-based API that allow you to authenticate using public key cryptography. If you don't know what that is, public key cryptography, the easy thing to remember, there's a public key and there's a private key. The public key is visible to everyone. The private key is secret and should be kept on the authenticator. The public key verifies signatures that were created or validate signatures that were created by the private key, and only the private key can create signatures that the public key can verify. So when you're using WebAuthn, you have the option of using two types of authenticators. You have roaming authenticators. So this is like YubiKeys, YubiKeys, and then Google's Titan security key as well. And these can be used on different devices because they're removable, so they're portable, they can roam. And then you have platform authenticators. So this is like the Mac OS Touch ID, the Face ID on the iPhone, the fingerprint on the Android, and like the Hello on the Microsoft. And these only work on that one device. So what are the benefits of WebAuthn? Well, number one, it's phishing resistant, because in order to authenticate with WebAuthn, the authenticator and the website have to have a previous relationship. So they have to register with each other. So if you happen to click a false link and try to authenticate, you won't be able to because there is no connection between the your authenticator and then the false website. Also, it reduces data breaches. Because the credentials are kept on the authenticator, there's no reason for an attacker to go for the database because the credentials aren't there in the first place. And also, it's invulnerable to the myriad of password attacks, dictionary attacks, replay attacks, brute force. We can go on and on and on with the ways that people try to attack passwords, but they will not work because there aren't any passwords. So now I'm going to actually talk about the web authentication API. So the web authentication API has two calls, navigator.credentials.create and navigator.credentials.get. So create is used when you're registering a website to the authenticator, and then get is used when you actually try to authenticate and log in to the website. All right, so for registration is the first one that we're going to go over. So like I said, it has the navigator.credentials.create call. Inside of that, you pass in a public key, which is an object that tells you the options that you want to have on this WebAuthn credential. So one property of that is the challenge. The challenge is a large random number that's used for registration and is thrown away and is only used for one transaction. And you want to be sure that when you create this challenge, you're doing it on the server so that's secure and no one has access to that challenge. The next property is RP, which stands for relying party. This is the website that's actually trying to register and authenticate this user. So it could be Auth0, Google, Twitter, whatever website you're actually trying to log into. Next is the user property. So this is about the user who's actually trying to register with the website. The authenticator uses the ID to associate the user with the credential. And this ID property is not supposed to be human readable, and it should not contain any identifying information about the user, like their email address or username or anything like that. The next property is public key or public cred params. It's an array that specifies the feature of the credentials. So for example, you can say the type. So this will be a public key. And then this is the cryptographic algorithm that was used. And there's a lot of choices for that. We went with -7 on this one. But this basically tells you what type of credential are you sending. And then there's also the authenticator selection. Now, this property is the details of the authenticator that you're using. So this one here says user verification and says preferred. So user verification basically means that you want to verify that it is the actual user. It has another option called user presence, and user presence basically means that someone is there. So say if I was trying to log in, I had a YubiKey plugged in, I could just press it and it would log me in, but anyone in this room could press it and it would log them in. It just does presence. But if you use user verification, it wants like a password, a PIN number, or like a fingerprint to actually log in to verify it is the correct user. You can also put in a value called authenticator attachment, and this allows you to specify if you want to use only the platform authenticators or if you want to use roaming authenticators as well. And then there's a time value or a timeout value. And this is basically how long the user has to respond to the request before it sends back any errors. Then once you do that create call, it returns a credential object, and it contains the public key and any other attributes. After the public key credential has been obtained, it is then sent back to the server and is then validated on the server. So that is how you create that connection between the authentication device and the website. So next, we want to talk about the authentication process. And they're fairly similar, but with authentication this allows the relying party to send a challenge to the authenticator to be signed. And then once the challenge is signed by the public key, is sent back to the relying party. All right, so when you run authentication or using the get call, it sends pretty much that same information, the public key object, and it has the challenge and everything like that. But it also has a property called allow credentials. And this is an array that tells the browser which credentials the server would like to authenticate with. And then once you do that call, it returns an assertion object. And it is also a public key credential object, but it does not contain the public key, but it does create a signature. After the assertion has been obtained, it is sent to the server to be validated. And then once it's validated, the signature is then verified using the public key. And the next thing I want to talk about is something that I'm really, really excited about that last time I checked isn't available in all of the browsers yet, but it's called discoverable credentials or resident keys. And with discoverable credentials and resident keys, you can actually remove having a username as well. So instead of just removing passwords, you can go to the website, touch your YubiKey, touch your macOS touch bar, and be automatically logged into the website, and it'll know exactly who you are. And the way that that's done in the registration, called the .create, you pass in a property called require resident key. You set that to true. And when that is set to true, the authenticator will create a unique identifier along with the private key and store it on the authenticator versus sending it to the server. So then when someone tries to log in, it'll retrieve that unique identifier and the private key and log them in, eliminating the use of even having a username. So I cannot wait till that's available in all browsers, because not only do I hate passwords, I hate usernames too. Like, it's me. All right, so I know I went over a lot of stuff, but as you can see, the WebAuthn API is pretty simple to implement on the front end. If you wanted to learn more about WebAuthn or other authentication and authorization protocols, you can check out the Auth0 Developer Center. You can either scan that QR code or follow that link to be able to get there and just check out all the things that we have and how you can implement authentication, authorization inside of your applications. So real quick to recap, we went over WebAuthn. First of all, we went over why no one raised their hands while I say if you like passwords, because they're not good. So we've both established that. And then we went over how we can eliminate the use of passwords using tools that are available in our browsers today. So if you're like me and want to get rid of passwords, increase security, and increase convenience, then WebAuthn is the way. Thank you.